Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. Australia is known as one of the world's best coffee centres, with some of our homegrown inventions, like the flat white, finding global popularity. But how much are you willing to pay for a barista brew? From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. By all accounts, we're in for a coffee price shock, which could be bad news for an industry reeling from COVID. Sean Edwards is Managing Director at Café Culture International, publishing journals and arranging events for Australia's cafe industry. He says he's confident Australians are so enamoured with their coffee that they won't turn their backs on the brew. He started by explaining to Jeff Waters why coffee prices are set to jump.
Well, we've had a whole range of things happen, and not just because of COVID. It's probably been a 10-year happening. We've obviously seen coffee is second most traded commodity after oil, so it's always very fluctuating in small amounts. But probably what we've seen in the last 10 years is the roaster really hasn't increased the kilo price for a long, long time. And what's happened to probably the last 3 or 4 years is, we've had double freight costs, like container ships are struggling to get around the world at the moment. Third world countries that produce coffee, struggling with labour like everywhere else in the world. Just general freight costs within the country of shipping, coffee from the roaster to the cafe has basically increased all these costs. So we're definitely going to see a kilo price go up from the roaster's end, which will then push onto the cafe. Then the cafe will probably push that onto the consumer.
So what you're describing appear to be supply line issues as a result of COVID, is that correct?
COVID increased the supply thing, but it was happening for a fair while, even like fuel prices going up, and there's a lot of little things. And we had a frost in Brazil, that always pushes the price up. There's been drought in some other countries in Africa, so, the supply chain's got tighter. Look at PNG and East Timor close to Australia. We've had major issues with COVID in those communities, so that's also stopped the close supply chain to Australia getting affected. It's very hard to get PNG coffees at the moment. East Timor coffees are nearly impossible to get. So those local supply to Australia has really dried up as well. So it's been a massive combination.
Why is the East Timorese supply difficult at the moment?
I think more politics than anything. So we look at the politics of those countries and, they're very unstable as it is. And when you get disease and like we've had with COVID, it's affected all their systems and internal transporting and, just the infrastructures.
So you've described supply issues as a result of COVID, but also environmental problems. But you say that coffee prices will increase for other reasons. What are they?
It's been happening for a while now in a lot of the third world countries that we basically have screwed the farmers for so long. They've switched to other crops, places like Indonesia, Ethiopia. They've been hammered just basically getting very small margins in the crop. So, those subsistence farmers that grow coffee are probably looking, I've got all this paddock, why am I wasting my time cropping coffee when it's not profitable? Let's put tomatoes in, or let's grow fruit trees, or so we've seen a bit of that. We've also seen a skill shortage. That's probably caused through technology. People all over the world have got access to smartphones now and the internet, so they're seeing better lives outside of farming. So the kids aren't coming through the generations of wanting to be a farmer like their parents. So they often go to school or further education in the cities, and they're not coming back to the farm. So, and I know that firsthand. We have a relationship with a farm in India, and every year to get the kids to come back and pick coffee during the season is nearly impossible. So the crops are getting left on the trees,
But what about the fact that so many cafes have closed as a result of COVID? Is that also affecting prices?
Probably not so much. I think, we had an overabundance of cafes in the bigger cities like Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane. And we've lost probably 25% of those cafes. A lot of those cafes were ones that were crammed into office blocks. We had 2 or 3 cafes underneath at major office blocks, people not coming to work and working from home. A lot of those cafes have shut. They haven't been sustainable to be trading so slow for 2 years. The government subsidies kept a lot of people out of their business as well. The rewards of staying home was a lot easier than running a cafe that was doing dribs and drabs. So on the other side of it, and not a lot of people are saying this, but a lot of those cafes are bought by new immigrants that basically use that small buy-in to get their immigration status. So a lot of them probably took COVID as a good excuse to get out, flick that business or just walk away from it.
So how would you describe the landscape at the moment for the cafe industry?
It's going to be a big reset. It's hard to pinpoint what's going to happen. I think some of these people have walked away from the businesses. The smarter operators may buy those sites or rerun those areas that have got good opportunities still. But we're big consumers of coffee in Australia and quality coffee, so I think the consumer is going to be really supportive of the industry, and I don't think putting prices up at the cup level is going to really affect or slow people from drinking a good product.
So you're saying that these prices are going to go up, but it won't have much of an impact on the industry as a whole?
No, well, you know yourself, you have a good coffee, it's very hard to go the other direction. And the Australian consumers, compared to the rest of the world, have been really spelt with good coffee. We've got 2,000 coffee roasters in Australia roasting to fairly high levels, and we know that because we run an event called the Golden Bean, which is running next week in Port Macquarie, where we judge the world's best coffees. And the level of quality is just getting higher and higher. There's more access to better coffees. I wouldn't say volume coffees, but there's still good access to the high quality coffees. And they're more expensive at a cup level as well.
Is there not a price point where this inflation would have an effect on the industry?
Not really. We're talking $1 a cup. So if every cafe put up their cups $1, it's not going to really affect the market. I wouldn't see it affecting it. People like quality and they're not going to go backwards,
Sure. So we've lost 20 to 25% of our cafes in Australia. What does that mean for the industry as a whole?
Well, it's more city-based, so I think we had an overabundance of too many cafes. We had surplus, and then we had a lot of cafes that really weren't up to speed. I think it's going to make people who go back into this game a lot smarter and a lot more. They'll think a little bit before they jump into the puddle. So I think long as the industry takes a quality approach, I think we will still maintain a good supply chain. And there's, like I said, there's more roasters coming on board than I've ever seen. This year's Golden Bean entries, we've probably got 30% increase in roasters in Australia. So people jumped out of probably other professions and said, I love coffee, I'm going to become a coffee roaster now. So there's been a big increase, and that's first-hand with us. We've seen those new names coming on board.
That was Café Culture International Managing Director Sean Edwards. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.